Alrighty, so I'm recording this video for week 4 at the almost to the week 3 Learn Together because I wanted to just highlight a couple of things that I have noted in here. More so than anything, I do give a benefit to working ahead in addition to hopefully giving you a little more time on the Learn Together work, is that, I have a little more time to give feedback. And so as you work on the Learn Together for week 3, as you're working closer to the due date, I don't have as much opportunity to do that. And that will just be true going on because there'll be so much work submitted, which is a good thing, but also a challenge. So by the time you've seen this, most of you have gotten through this. So it's really important that, you understand the requirement. And if you have a question, ask me. But the thing I wanted to say more than anything is just know that working ahead has got many benefits in the Learn Together and in the code alongs as well. So let's look at the topics I have for week 4. And one of the things several of you will have noticed on your code along for week 3 was that I gave you a message saying you missed using the display on page, or I've noticed I'm not consistent. I think I originally named it show on page, and then later I just said display on page, whichever, as long as it displays on the page. Now, you might wonder why I do this, because the sooner we get to the browser, the better. And it's not that you can't use console.log, you totally can, but I want you to also have that output on page because I want you to get used to it. Okay, so for this week, on the code along, be very careful and read carefully. And I'm going to actually show you this now in a way to hopefully give you that heads up that's in the written instruction. And also make sure you read all the way to the end of the instruction for any additional reflection I want you to make. So I'm going to move over to GitPod real quick. And I just have set up in here an app.js, which has the show on page. I have the index, which has the div of output, the script of app.js, and then I have the file I'm using for my example, or what for you would be what you're coding along with. Okay, so then if I look up in my example, which I already have open here, what I'm setting up, and you will not probably got to the code along yet, but here's what you're going to learn in the code along was you're going to learn how to set up objects. Okay. Oh, actually, very nice. So I actually didn't do this, and I need to, by the way. You can use const here because I'm not changing it. Totally makes sense, right? So anytime you declare and assign a variable, right? Unless you're going to change it, if you're going to change it somehow structurally, hit let, but otherwise const makes most sense. But in this case, I'm setting up an object with key value pairs. Okay, and then I'm just saying show on page. Now I'm calling this show on page. That is, its code for the show on page is setting out in app.js. It's not setting in my index file. Now you can put it there, but the benefit of leaving it like this is that you don't have to include it every time you write a new file. But more importantly, why I'm here, and I'm just going to go ahead and now that I'm outputting, and I'm going to show you, talk about this. First, it's going to output correctly, which is when we use template strings and we reference the object by its object key value. Like this. Again, this is what you're going to learn. Let's just go ahead and go live and see what it does. Okay. So now the first thing that happens here though is, and I've noticed this on GitPod, is that when you first fire it up, it's going to run from the root directory of whatever you have open. So if I just click into the JS Bootcamp, then I see the output. Okay, and I'm just going to go ahead and hit inspect here just so we have that up as well, and making sure my console is showing so we can clearly see it. Okay, now what I want to show you can happen here. Let's go back here. And one of the reasons I love this is that, and this is generally true with most of these live previews, it should be hot reloading. Sometimes it may not. Hot reloading just means that it's going to see when your code changes and reload that. Otherwise, you have to hit refresh. But here's what may happen to you during the code along is if you just reference the object like this, What'll happen is the browser can't necessarily, and I'm just going to throw a console.log here just to show you my object. Okay. Now I'm going to come back over to my output, right? And I'll look at that. It didn't reload. So I need to check that setting. So one thing you'll notice is when in the browser, it'll say object object because it doesn't know how to display it inside the browser. But in the console, it totally knows how to handle that. And you can drop this and see these key value pairs. But in the browser, it won't. And that's why I say when you're outputting to the browser, make sure you're actually using this dot notation, my object dot, whatever it is, right? And actually it's my object dot. And that's the other thing is the editor will actually try to help you by saying, oh, hey, there's two of these keys in here. Which one are properties? Which one do you, and sometimes it's called key, sometimes it's called property, but they're used interchangeably. Okay. So in this case, it'd be my hair because we know that in the browser, the show on page was not correct. And now that I come back here and again hit refresh, then it works. Okay, so just heads up, and I give that information inside. Matter of fact, I noticed today, and I'm glad I did this, is I noticed today that my instruction was syntactically not correct. So I'm going to go fix that in the next little bit, and it's right here. This example is in here. And also, the other benefit of this is that reading this carefully is I do give a break through here, so you'll see that. So what I noticed here was I opened the template string, and I don't know why I put that dollar there, but I didn't close the template string. Okay, so this idea of using template strings, you really should from now on just use when you're injecting variables into some kind of string that you want to output. Okay. All right. So those were the topics I wanted to say. And the other thing is, I've already mentioned this. This is what I started with today, which is that on the Learn Together code, there's a benefit to working ahead, and you'll get more feedback from me than working closer to the due date. But I understand, you get to do it whenever it works into your schedule. So, last thing I want to say here is that, make sure you're doing good code formatting. And that's why using things like Prettier really helps. Oh, let me go here, right? So, using Prettier, like you can just select the whole document, or you can just say format selections with, and it'll select, like I could do TypeScript or my default, which I probably should set. And actually, it's already set as default. I can just do that. And what that does is it interjects those semicolons, and it just makes that code look so much cleaner, because one of the things you want is you want your code very readable. Okay, so with this video, next week, week 5, I will have the schedule for our first dev, and I will have a conversation just about how that works. And then I did add one thing to the dev, but now is a great time to be coming and talking to me. Please know that Discord has been great. If you're not on Discord, I highly recommend it. You can find the invite up in here, up in the start, up in week 0. If you didn't do it when you first came through, it is in here, the invite to join the server. We've had some really amazing support. Specifically, shout out to Dustin. He's just been rocking it. Okay, so, and everybody who's helped out, thank you very much. So what do I want you to reply here, right? So I generally say reply. So here's what I want to hear. I want to hear from you what has been so far in this course, right? The most challenging thing for you, right? So in your reply, that's what I'm going to look for. Like, what has been in this week for attendance in your reply? Any other questions you want to ask? Great time to ask it. But what has been so far the most challenging thing for you? Or maybe if there hasn't been a most challenging, what's been the most fun? And actually, maybe we'll start with the most fun and then have you do the most challenging. You can choose. Anyway, have a great day. I'll talk to you later.